Over the past few years, I filled many sketchbooks, wanting to improve my drawing and painting skills, but not seeing enough progress. But last year, in 2025, was the year I saw the most significant progress in my art skills, and it was because of a few new things I challenged myself to do. In this video, I'm going to share 5 art lessons I learned in 2025 and what resources I used to learn that lesson. These lessons are not general advice, neither will they help you improve overnight. They are more technical lessons and do require discipline, patience, and continuous practice. Also, this video is sponsored by Craftsy, and I'll tell you a little more about them later in the video. One of my first illustrations in 2025 was imagining the domestic life of a wizard. I attempted to paint this idea with gouache in February 2025, but the execution of the idea didn't satisfy my imagination or the vision I had for it. From this, I had to take a step back and ask myself why I wasn't happy with the result. I realized there were a lot of fundamentals I needed to study regarding color, composition, and technique to be able to actually paint the scenes I imagined. This led me to take up plein air painting. Plein air painting means painting in the open outdoors, and basically it's when you take your art supplies outside and paint landscapes from life. This exercise changed everything for me, leading to the first lesson that significantly improved my nature paintings. Chroma control. Color is a feature of reality with 3 main attributes: hue, value, and chroma or saturation. The hue is what we mean when we say color, a specific wavelength of light that corresponds to red, yellow, blue, green, and so forth. Value is in grayscale, how white or black a hue is, and chroma is how intense the color is. For example, a green hue could range from neon green to olive green. There are so many resources online to observe and learn from. Patreon pages directly from artists, YouTube, books, online courses, and learning resources on platforms like craftsy, who are also the sponsor of this video. Craftsy is an online community and resource offering more than 2,000 classes on all things creative. Drawing and watercolor painting is included, but they also have classes on other crafting skills like journaling, knitting, woodworking, crochet, baking, jewelry making, to name a few. I've been particularly enjoying this class by Stephen Reddy called Dynamic Detail in Pen, Ink, and Watercolor. Stephen teaches his technique for creating a watercolor painting or griselle in a step-by-step paint-along manner. After the underpainting, he shows you how to glaze and build up layers in chroma and achieve smooth transitions between dark and light. Crafty's classes are short but broken down for a complete beginner or hobbyist to pick up something new and experience the satisfaction of creating something truly one of a kind with your own 2 hands. I thought Craftsy is a great way to also be part of a social community who are learning the same things. They're always creating new classes to add to the platform. So if you're interested in joining, they've given me an amazing offer to share with you. The first 1,000 people watching this video to use the link in my description will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. The offer is valid for new members only, so if this is the first time you're hearing of Craftsy and their classes, it's the best time to take advantage of this offer. Thank you Craftsy for sponsoring this video. Speaking of knowledge and lessons, let's get back to this painting. My biggest mistake when painting this was that I was using my paint directly out of the tube, resulting in way too saturated colors, high chroma colors, without intending to do so. You can still create wonderful paintings with high chroma, and a lot of artists do so. Plein air painting taught me that greens in nature are a lot more desaturated than we think they are, even when they're in bright sunlight. Samuel Earp, a teacher on YouTube, has a bunch of tutorials on this. I followed a few of his tutorial videos and learned how to mix greens from the primary colors and use a limited palette for chroma control. One way to train your eye on color and light is removing the option of chroma completely. This means drawing entirely using graphite or charcoal, which only creates in grayscale. These are the colors I used for painting Wizard's washing line. As you can see, they are almost all the gouache tubes I have, leading to saturated, cartoonish feeling in the final illustration. These are the colors I now use since learning about chroma control. It's a very limited palette with only the primary colors: pyro red, yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, titanium white for increasing the value of any color, and Hansa yellow medium and spring green for carefully controlling the chroma. In Samuel Earp's tutorials, he uses phthalo green to control chroma, but since I didn't have that color in gouache, I went with the next most saturated green I had. You can do the same. If you don't have phthalo green or spring green in gouache, you can still use sap green, hooker's green, or any saturated green available to you. In the worst case scenario where you don't have any greens at all, you can use a saturated yellow mixed with ultramarine blue to mix a high chroma green yourself. Plein air painting with this limited palette forced me to learn to mix colors using only these 5 colors. For example, yellow ochre and ultramarine blue resulted in a very dark, desaturated green, perfect for trees, which are often the darkest shape in a landscape. But for a leaf lit up in direct sunlight, you would need to increase the chroma, and that's where Hansa yellow medium or spring green came in. Mixing all the primaries together led to a dark gray, and mixing different ratios of red, yellow, or blue together led to different shades of browns and purples, ideal for painting tree bark. In this limited color palette, the darkest value you will get is dark gray because there is no black paint included. This way, the colors you mix for shadows and light will be more alive and dynamic instead of dull silhouettes that result from using pure black paint to paint shadows. And this led me to the next lesson. Any color can be light and shadow. Without black paint in the palette, you have to paint shadows using complementary colors. This was one of the biggest lessons that improved my painting skills. White is not the only color of light, and black is not the only color of shadow. A shadow can be purple, green, and even orange. A light source doesn't only have to be yellow or white. It can also be pink, blue, and even red. Tommy Kim, a plein air painter and urban sketcher, primarily uses gouache in his work. One video from him blew my mind. In this video, he painted a green sunset. Green is an unconventional color to use for painting a sunset. When we think of sunsets, we think of warm colors like yellow, orange, pink. But here, he painted a green sunset. How could he use a colder color like green to paint a warm, light source? How is it that the end result did look like a sunset despite the unconventional color choice? The answer lies in the first most important attribute of color: value. Recapping from the first lesson, value is how dark or light a hue is, how close to white or how close to black it is. If you remove all chroma from a picture, all you are left with is values. And this is the map for light and the key to painting anything. Every object and material reacts differently to light. For example, metal objects have a shine effect, which means that they are bands of dark values directly beside the brightest white value. Skin is translucent, which means that when a light source is directly behind your finger, it highlights the red color of your blood. Spherical shapes have a bounce light on them before its shadow is casted on the surface it is on, and many more examples. This is a game changer because it doesn't matter what hue you choose to paint an object, as long as the values are correct for that object's material. You can maintain the illusion of it. You can paint a green sunset or a person with blue skin. This was one of the mistakes I made in my Wizard's washing line painting, which left me unsatisfied with the painting. I didn't know how to paint the different values on different material, which left every object in the painting look like it was made of the same material. Another thing to keep in mind when painting different materials is lesson number 3, textures. Textures can make an illustration more bold and interesting. When painting, we are learning from reality to make an illustration more believable. But as an artist, we can also choose to change things up and add our own flair to make the illustration more pleasing to look at. This is where textures come in. Use of textures can help achieve realism too, if that's what you're going for. I learned the bulk of this lesson from a watercolor artist named David Poxon, whose hyper-realistic watercolor work looked like sorcery at first, until I learned from his courses and saw that it was just a masterful use of textures. Watercolor and gouache especially can achieve a variety of fun textures. Some of the textures techniques I now use a lot is dry brushing, using a gouache or watercolor paint with very little water. This is great for painting rough surfaces like stone, wood, or leave impressions of moss or random shapes of trees. Splattering. This is ideal for painting particles of dust lit up in light, or rust on metal, or freckles on skin. Glazing. Especially with watercolor, painting a grayscale underpainting and then glazing with color makes the process so much more efficient, where you can focus on creating a focal point with light, even avoid making a muddy mess. Now that we know about controlling chroma and using textures, the next lesson is an important one to bring everything together. Simplification. Take a look at this painting again. Where does your attention go to first? Where does your eyes linger? Do you look at the cat first, clothing line, or perhaps the staff, or the flowers, or even the butterfly? After learning this fourth lesson, I realized that there is no clear composition in this illustration, and there is equal detail everywhere, making it difficult to see what the focal point is supposed to be. This fourth lesson is about simplifying a composition, focusing detail on some areas of the painting and leaving other areas rough, almost sketchy. When simplifying an illustration, focus on the story you want to tell and save all the detail, texture, color, light on that area. Some other ways you can simplify your composition is by painting a dark form over a light background, painting a light over a dark background, such as stars, fire, glowing objects, saturation or chroma. The areas in the focal point will have more saturated colors, everywhere else will have more grayish colors. Such areas could be the background mountains, distant figures, or a road disappearing far away. Light. A striking light source can also bring the viewer's attention to the focal point. Keep central objects key to the focal point in direct light, and other objects that don't need much attention in the shadows. Textures. A character who is the focal point could have a lot more texture visible on them, such as freckles, dust, rust on their armor, wear and tear on their clothes. But a figure who is further away won't have as much visible on them. This is how you keep the main character, the focal point, in focus, while being able to tell a story in the background with very little detail. And lastly, that brings me to the fifth lesson of 2025, making references. In the age of AI image generation, it is getting increasingly difficult to find authentic references that haven't been AI modified. Apart from that, using other people's images as references can also be tricky because it's hard to find exactly what you're looking for when you have a specific thing you want to paint. Painting from life or using life references is great, but for fantasy illustration, it's impossible to find a dragon curled up in a pond or a giant snail towering over a skyscraper. So how do you find a reference for that? One of the top 3 books I read last year was Imaginative Realism by James Gurney. In his book, he describes his process when illustrating the Dinotopia books, about how he sculpted and created maquettes for the fictional cities and even the dinosaur characters of Dinotopia. Using anything he could recycle, from cardboard to foam to wood and clay, he imagined the entire setting first with these materials and then used it as a life reference. He could then even play with different lights and paint the same scene more accurately as if it were really during the day or nighttime in this fictional city. Making your own references is a good way to not only get the reference that you need and paint more believable fantasy illustrations, but also to improve your observational skills and discover your own unique artistic voice. When you make your own references, like the maquettes for Dinotopia, you are also the director of the shot, laying out a scene the way you envision it every step of the way without any external input. This leads you to following your own fascinations. Maybe you enjoy the atmosphere during a certain time of day and want all your illustrations to have that atmosphere. Maybe you have a certain type of flower that grows near you, and that's the only live reference of the flower you have access to. So you include it in the world building of your fantasy setting. All of it makes it a unique expression of yourself, which is important for discovering your artistic voice. Looking back at 2025, I feel like I have learned a lot in a short span of time. While that information is downloaded in my head, it will take many more years to put them into practice. Slowly, painting by painting, I'm excited to see how it unfolds, because there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. If you watched till the end of this video, which lesson was your favorite? And which lesson did I miss that you think is quite important to add here? Thank you for watching. I hope these lessons were valuable to you, and I will see you in the next video. But wait, I have a 6th bonus lesson that you can take into 2026 on your art journey, and it's called warm-ups. Have you ever felt like your handwriting had gotten rusty and untidy after weeks of not handwriting anything, and you felt like you forgot how to write? Just like working out our body, we need to warm up our hand posture and drawing and painting muscles before beginning a new piece of artwork. In 2025, I began keeping a warm-up sketchbook in which I'd scribble, draw circles, shapes, stick people, anything, to warm up my hand and posture before beginning a drawing or painting. Often, it wasn't that I forgot how to draw or paint, I just needed a warm-up. Try it yourself and see how you improve.